Hello, folks. Welcome to the Whitlam Organics Weekly Garden Report. This is episode 0. I'm calling this 0 because it's a test pilot. I'm messing around with equipment, and I'm just trying to figure this live stream thing out. I'm your host, David Whitlam. Let me just give you guys a little rundown of what this is supposed to be. Probably going to spend a few minutes in the beginning just talking a little bit about what I'm kind of seeing out there around the Tampa Bay area, gardens that I go to, along with what we're doing actually at this moment in our nursery. I'm probably going to run through a brief topic or two of things that I find important or that I see keep coming up with interactions with other gardeners. And then I really want to leave a good chunk of time open for people to log in and ask questions live. I think this could be a lot of fun, kind of like a call-in talk radio show on the Future's webs. So let's jump into kind of what I've been seeing out there in garden world. Our weekly garden report. So here goes. It's hot. Thank you. No, seriously. It is definitely we are in the middle of summer for sure. I kind of look at this time of year as a great time to kind of start over. For anybody who's been gardening in Florida for some time understands that unlike up north where you kind of have a starting spot and a stopping spot, here it's just a giant circle. You just keep going and keep going. And really, I think it's a good idea to kind of force a starting spot, a stopping spot. And I like to use the middle of the summer for that time, if not for an entire garden project, at least for one bed. So what I've been doing a lot out there. Oh, it sounds muffled. Yeah, this is just going to be a big experiment on trying to get equipment figured out. So what I've actually been doing out there a lot right now is just clearing out beds. Been doing a lot, just removing everything from the spring. If we didn't get a summer crop in June, and really kind of trying to decide what we're going to do with those beds here moving forward. If we're going to wait to plant them for a fall crop, we're actually covering them up. We're either using like hay or we're using some landscape cloth. We're just covering them up. I call this summarizing the garden. It's not solarizing. We're not trying to kill the soil. We're just trying to give it a rest and make it so it's not such a big weedy mess when we come back to plant in the fall. So in some of our other beds, we are planting either a second round of summer crops. Some of those summer crops that we're planting might include some okra, hot peppers, amaranth, Egyptian spinach, Malabar spinach, Everglades tomatoes, long beans. Actually, if you go over onto our website, we have a list called Heat Loving Greens and Things. Most of that stuff can be grown at one point or another throughout the summer. They're either thrive in the heat or are extremely heat tolerant. Even in the gardens where we are planting another round of summer stuff, I'm usually kicking it down to like half full. So I might be covering up half the beds with landscape cloth, and then the other half of the beds we're planting with another round of summer crops. Out in the nursery, we are actually planting our first round of spring eggplants, tomatoes, and peppers. We are also planting another round of melons, different types of watermelons, cantaloupes, and honeydews. And I know it's a little bit early, but we are going to go ahead and start some of our more heat tolerant leafy greens. So if you're new to this, that would be pretty much anything that you had growing from the winter time that made it the longest. So that would be, for us, that's kale, collards, chard, and broccoli. We're taking a little bit of a gamble here. We could lose some of this stuff, but more often than not, we have about 80% of it survive. And once the weather actually cools off, we're that much ahead of the game. Really, for us, the trick is trying to cheat the season more on the front end than trying to cheat the season on the back end. When you're trying to cheat the season on the back end, you usually have a more mature plant. It might have been producing some for you already. It's already stressed out. You have a lot invested in it. So for us, I would rather err on the side of trying to cheat the season on the front end, because then if I'm losing some seedlings or some seeds, we don't have a whole lot invested. I've also found, believe it or not, if you can get them through the first couple weeks, seedlings are actually a lot stronger, tend to have a lot less insect attack than a mature plant that's trying to reproduce. I think that's just an added stress for those plants. So really, if you kind of think about it, I know this might sound crazy, but it really does cool off here around the last week of September. And by cool off, I mean when you walk out the door in the morning, 7 in the morning, you aren't sweating through your clothes. That's what I mean by cool off. It's pleasant. You might be thinking about having a cup of coffee outside. You might start noticing a change in weather patterns as far as our daily rainstorms. Humidity might be dropping out of the air a little bit. Definitely, no matter what the weather does, we're that many more weeks on the other side of June 21st, which is the summer solstice, or second this year, where the sun is the highest in the sky, and we have the longest day of the year. So we're cruising to where the sun's just not as intense anymore, for sure. So around the last week of September to the first week of October is when I really try and have fall plants that are already producing. I know a lot of people who wait until then, and I've been completely wrong about this for many years because it just hasn't been getting that cold. But sometimes we do get some colder weather in November or December, which can really put a hamper on those fall crops. So like I was saying, I would rather try and cheat the season a little bit on the front end. And when it does finally cool off and get into the temperature range, I like to have big tomato plants already growing and already producing. So just to recap, in the nursery right now, we're planting by seed, another round of our fall eggplants, tomatoes, peppers. We're also doing all of our melons, kale, collards, chard, and broccoli. I'm actually thinking about doing some corn. Again, I had a great crop of corn for spring. The problem with corn definitely is those smaller plants. They get wiped out, annihilated by caterpillars. So if you are going to try corn, you definitely have to be willing to get into some sort of pest control product regimen. Otherwise, they'll just don't even try. Just don't even try. So, kind of where are we at with the seasons right now? We're not the seasons as far as what you're used to seeing on the calendar, but more our planting cycles. Right now, we're smack in the middle of our summer planting cycle. Our summer planting cycle actually takes up 3 seasons. If you talk about plants that can survive summer, like summer, you can actually start those in the spring. You can grow them through the summer, and you can grow them into fall. So it's 3 seasons. Or on the reverse of that, our winter growing season, crops that can survive winter, those can be started in the fall. They are grown through the winter and into spring. And then we have our actual fall and spring season. The plants that fall into those 2 categories are usually about the same. I call them the Goldilocks plants. Those are all the plants that really don't like it too hot in the summer, and they can't take a frost or a breeze in the wintertime, which getting less and less of. That's a whole other topic. So right now we're in the middle of a potential second planting for our summer crops that will go into fall. We are also on the early side of getting some of those fall crops going, so that we can hit that perfect window when the weather's just nice. That's what the fall crops and the spring crops really like. Like, it's just, you love living here in Florida. That's what those plants want. And then I'm definitely cheating the season a lot by doing this, but I've just been doing this long enough, and I know which varieties we are gonna jump in and try and get some kale, collards, chard, and broth going. But basically, the date I'm looking at last week of September to about the first week of October, and then you kind of count back from there. We're what, 64 days from the first day of fall. So if you're looking at a 90-day crop, or even a 70, 80-day crop, or a 100-day crop, it's a good idea to try and, you're going to be fighting the weather, but it's a good idea to get that stuff going now, because when that weather gets right for that plant, when a mature plant that's already producing, does it mean you're going to be battling some stuff on the front end? Yes. Does it mean you might need some shade cloth right now? Yes. This might mean you might lose some of them to a pounding rain. Absolutely. We do the same thing in the spring. We try and get a jump on our spring crops in January, February, when we might lose them to a frost, because we know that heat of the summer is coming right around the corner. So your spring and your fall seasons are getting pinched on both sides due to weather, unless like the past 2 years where we had an extremely mild winter and the fall crop is kind of rolled into the spring crop. So that's what we have going on in our nursery. It's kind of what I've seen around the Tampa Bay as far as like what I'm doing in my gardens and stuff. The topic I want to cover today that I'm going to probably talk about for the next 3 weeks, because it's always one of the first things that people ask when I open it up to questions. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in, and that is pest control. We're in Florida. There's a lot of pests. I'm asked all the time, like, what do we do about those pests? And the first thing we do is we try to avoid them altogether. So if we have a certain pest out, see, not all the pests are out there going after your plants all year. They have seasons. They have the time of year when they're out there. They have their plants that are their favorites when they are out there. So one of the first things we do is we try to just avoid them altogether by planting the right plant in the right time, when that plant is going to be the most successful based on the weather, based on the amount of sunlight during the day, and that's going to give it its best chance, especially if it's its biggest pest problem. Pest is not really around, and that's the beginning, kind of baseline of the pyramid of something that is known as integrated pest management. So really, before we even get into starting to talk about pest control products or something you might put in a pump sprayer and spray onto your plants, what we really like to talk about is integrated pest management. And it's really a system and a way of gardening that is meant to suppress your pest problems while also increasing the balance of your environment. It's basically working with your environment instead of trying to work against it. So the pyramid kind of goes, the baseline of that pyramid are cultural practices. That is as simple as, well, if we were talking about pest control in your house, it would be as simple as cleaning up the crumbs on the counter, not making a mess in the first place, sealing around your door so they can't get in. These are all cultural practices. I've never heard of anybody who calls the exterminator out to their house and what are all these roaches doing? And then there's crumbs and dirty dishes everywhere, and you just spray it with pest control and don't do anything else. Every single exterminator is going to tell you, one of the first things you want to do is you want to quit feeding these things. So those are all cultural practices. Having the right plants in during the right time of year, and not growing plants that are out of season, that are out of zone, that are going to grow stressed out. The insects are attracted to the plants that are the weakest. They're attracted to the ones that aren't really happy, that aren't really strong. Next on that pyramid, so that's kind of your baseline pyramid, is focusing on your environment, what you're doing on the front end. This would also include proper plant spacing, making sure that your plants aren't overcrowded. It would also include things like making sure your soil is healthy, making sure that you are focusing on your soil's biology and not just feeding the plants fertilizer, but also trying to feed your soil good organic matter. These are all good cultural practices. Sanitation. You're actually, we're going to talk about these over the next 3 weeks. I don't want to get too far into each one. I just want to give a good overview. The next on the list is mechanical or physical means of taking care of any pest problems. So that would be creating barriers, companion planting, putting certain plants together. There might be one that repels a certain insect that might be attacking another one, all the way down to like squishing caterpillars with your fingers. One of the things I found effective, by the way, is we actually squish the caterpillars and we leave them on the leaves, because that actually encourages the next layer of our pyramid is biological. So at the same time that you're trying to just do sticky fly traps, that would be mechanical means of trying to trap your pests. Biological is basically trying to encourage beneficial insects that can come in and help you with your pest problems. You are not going to get the benefits of your beneficial insects if the first thing you do right away, knee-jerk reaction, is you go out there and start spraying everything down with pesticides. It's going to kill everything. So non-selective pesticides, that will knock that layer out of your pyramid right away. You will never get help with what you have going on. There is a chart that you can look up online as far as it's just a general chart for what it looks like as far as a plant's thresholds from insect attack before it causes catastrophic damage. And then as that, so you have your plant's growing, and then the pest population that's attacking the plant, its population is growing to a point, and let's say like right here is the point where your plants are going to die. Unfortunately, on the first round, a lot of times for new gardens, the population of beneficial insects that might be attacking those insects are kind of lagging behind. So just imagine, for example, in your garden you have plants and the aphids show up, and the population of the aphids keeps growing and growing and growing. It's going to take a little while for the ladybugs to realize that, hey, there's a bunch of food laying around, and just show up and start using your yard as a place to raise their young and feast on those aphids. So a lot of times the population of the aphids will actually kill your plants before the population of ladybugs comes in. So one of the practices that we do when we see our plants under attack is we actually give them some supplemental food, and we try some minor mechanical means of removing some of those aphids off the plants, waiting for those ladybugs to come in and help to start taking care of our problems. Next on the list for your integrated pest management would be the so on this last one, biological. I would include biological pest control products, so products that contain different fungi and bacteria that are selective. They're going after your target insect. I would consider those biological. Some people, say that that's starting to get into, if you're going to the store buying it, it's got a label, kind of left the biological realm. But if it's alive and that's what's causing the mode of action, I consider it to be biological. So next up would be natural chemicals. As we're going up the pyramid here. So up near the top, we have our natural chemicals. So that would be your oils, and your soaps, diatomaceous earth. Wow, that could be maybe physical. I don't know. That's kind of interesting. Why don't you guys who know about integrated pest management give me your opinion on whether or not you think diatomaceous earth would fall under the category of physical. By the way, those who don't know what diatomaceous earth is, it's got microscopic diatoms in it that have little pokey skeletons that actually get on the insect and break up its exoskeleton or cause enough agitation that they leave if it's a larger insect. So I'm not sure, if that would be physical, natural, but way down the line at the tippy top of the chart, and nowhere even in our arsenal of what we can use as organic gardeners is any synthetic chemicals methods of pest control. And what's really interesting about integrated pest management is it's used across the board in the agricultural world. It's used by conventional farming and it's used by organic farming. I mean, more on the organic side, but more and more conventional farmers, those synthetic pest control products are beginning to recognize, what they do to the environment. That the more they use them, the more they have to use them. So they're getting into kind of the ideas of really needing to balance their environment. So that's what I'm going to really dive into. A lot of people think that when I tell them I'm going to talk about pest control, or they ask me to talk about pest control, that I'm actually going to talk about pest control. I'm going to spend a lot more time talking about your soil. I'm going to spend a lot more time talking about the seasons. I'm going to spend a lot more time talking about what you're planting, how you're feeding it, how you're pruning it, before we even get into talking about pest control products. We do have a few that we use on the regular because we already know that even if you do everything right, you're going to have these pest problems right here. And over the next 2 or 3 weeks, I'll go over those products. I'm going to talk to y'all about their mode of action. I want to talk to y'all about when to use them, proper use, when they work, when they don't work. Super important to understand that when you are getting into using some sort of pest control product, that you have identified what pests you're trying to kill or mitigate. And I also think it's a good idea to understand the pest control product and its mode of action, because that will help you figure out how to get the most out of your pest control products, instead of just going out there willy-nilly spraying whatever, whenever. It just doesn't work. So we have. I really don't want this to go more than 30 minutes. We might go over with the questions and stuff, but for the most part, this is going to be kind of quick every single week. So I'm going to jump into questions now. Hey Patty, hey Jay, Matthew, Carolyn, everyone. I've got all these people here. Yay! So let's see who has some questions. And by the way, if so, these sessions, you guys are going to be able to go back and view them on my Facebook page and on our YouTube page. And if you can't join us on Wednesdays at 5:30, you can email your questions to info@wigwamorganics.com. And I will go through those emails before and hopefully get to your questions. So if you have questions, and even if you can't join us on a Wednesday, please email us your questions. If you have topics that you want me to cover, please email the topics. If you would be interested in being on this show, send me an email. I can send you the link and we can kind of set it up screen to screen where we talk about a topic together. I think that would be a lot of fun, by the way. So that being said, I'm going to jump into some of these questions. Good variety of tomatoes for medium size in a planter to try. Asking from a northerner. This is from Karen. Any type of tomato that is labeled as determinate or semi-determinate, I think, make the best container tomatoes. You can totally grow indeterminate tomatoes in containers. So what that means is basically your indeterminate tomatoes tend to be larger plants. They tend to put out more tomatoes over a longer season, so they kind of keep pushing out flushes. They tend to be more viney. Your determinate tomatoes tend to be more stocky, thicker stems. They sort of like to push out all their tomatoes at the same time, so people are making sauces like determinate tomatoes for that reason. So sometimes aromas, that's a good example. Patio tomatoes, that's another good example of determinants. Indeterminants, those are some of your larger slicing tomatoes all the way down to your cherry tomatoes. So growing indeterminate tomatoes in a container, totally doable. Just be ready and willing to chase that thing down, and building a trellis system to hang it up on. With tomatoes, especially in Florida, our biggest offender are insects. It's fungus problems, and the more you have those leaves and branches pushing into each other, the more likely you're giving those funguses and molds and mildews places to set up. And once they get going, man, and sporing out, they'll just kind of ravish your whole plant. So I always tell people, imagine like you're hanging up your laundry to dry. You would never hang up your laundry by bunching it up and putting it over the clothesline, because that's where you're going to get mold and mildew. So just in the same way, you don't really want to be tying branches onto branches. So determinate tomatoes, they're a little bit easier to manage because they've got big stocky branches kind of hold themselves up. So yeah, stick with something determinate. What variety of tomatoes grow best here in Tampa Bay, Pinellas, and when is the best time to grow them? We've been having really good luck with these Everglades tomatoes. They are about this big. They're teeny tiny. I have a bush outside. I should have. I'll bring some in next week and show them to you. They're delicious. They grow year round. I mean, the one single plant that you have won't necessarily grow year round, but if you're having them in one spot, inevitably they're going to hit the ground and they're going to self-seed and come back up. So with a little bit of tending, they still have fungus problems. They still are looking terrible right now this time of year, but you know what, we're still getting tomatoes. As far as big slicing tomatoes, we are having really good luck with Cherokee purples. As a matter of fact, I have a small Cherokee purple tomato right here that we actually pulled off one of our last plants that we had out in the nursery. So I know that they're heat tolerant, and we get good production off of them. I know some people have had issues with them splitting right here. It definitely is a problem. I mean, for the most part, I found that they split right there and then it kind of heals itself up. That's another topic for another day. I think it's a genetic issue because this tomato has gotten very popular, and I don't think they're being as selective with their seeds anymore. So we like the Cherokee purples. We also love the sun golds. Sun golds are bright orange, cherry tomato. The things put out so much. They're so sweet and delicious. So those are probably my three big picks. One slicing tomato, the Cherokee purples, so they do get big. The mini cherries, the Everglades tomatoes, and sun golds for the best flavor. Let's see here. Is straw a better mulch than pine needles? That is very conditional. The pine needles, I mean, it depends on what you have available. Really, it depends on what you have available. Anything that the pine needles can do to the ground it'll be fine. It's just what you have available. The pine needles I've heard, I have not verified, but it kind of makes sense because of the pine. The pine needles breaking down can actually lower the pH of your soil, which in some of our Florida soils that wouldn't be such a bad thing. With the hay, let's see, what do I use? I use coastal hay because it has less seeds in it. So the thicker straw stuff that you see at like a Halloween, decoration setup, it's got a lot of seeds in it. I made the mistake of getting a bunch of donations of that for some gardens and used it as a mulch after Halloween was over. And we had grass coming up in those beds for the next 2 months. So now I just take the straw and compost it if we do get it as a donation. It'll be a good time to try some straw bale gardening, which I get mixed reviews from people on, but it definitely does work. It's kind of fun. But we use coastal hay as a mulch on the beds. I like it because I can kind of scrape it back and pull it back, plant some more seeds, put it back out, and it does kind of break down. We are over time, so I got one last question here from Patty. How you doing, Patty? So I plan on doing more lettuce because I got a good crop. I felt like the growing season was too short since it warmed up. How early could I plant them to maximize how long I get them? So with lettuce, whether it's a crop over the wintertime or some of these summer lettuces, the trick is planting it in succession. So planting some, waiting a little while, planting some more, waiting a little while, planting some more. So a lot of times when we say like, okay, this plant can be grown from this date to this date, that doesn't mean that that plant right there can be grown from this date to this date, or should be. It means that that variety can be grown from this date to this date. If you try to plant here and grow that same plant all the way to here, a lot of times you ain't gonna make it. So you plant some here, wait a couple weeks, plant some more, wait another couple weeks, plant some more. And that's whether or not you're using it like a cut and come again plant, like you're picking leaves off of it. And obviously, if you're going to try and grow a head lettuce, it's like it grows and then you chop it off and it's done, like carrots. You want to keep planting. Broccoli is another one that I have found. It doesn't have to be as tightly spaced together, but if I want to have broccoli throughout the entire season when it's possible, I plant a few rounds of broccoli. I might plant some when we plant it here in the next couple weeks, and that's going to be my first round of broccoli. And then maybe when it cools off again, October-ish, I might plant another round of broccoli, because even though they put out side shoots and you keep harvesting them off, it is stressful on the plant. They can get funguses inside, so if you want to keep that prolonged harvest. And it's the same thing with lettuce. You can only pick at the plant so many times, and it's going to stress it out, and eventually it's going to die. But those summer lettuces that you were growing, we've actually been growing them all summer. We just harvest them a lot smaller right now. And they don't get hardly bitter at all, especially they're just barely bitter right now, where if I pick them and put it in the refrigerator overnight, it actually sweetens right up. They're delicious. So that is going to do it, guys. Thank you very much for joining me, and check out our website at www.whitlamorganics.com. We've got a whole new section of Florida natives that we're rocking and rolling on. Jessica's been working really hard on getting us and there'll be more and more and more to come. Kaylee is working really hard right now on getting our seeds and seedlings categorized better by season, so that you can then go on our website and kind of click in where you are and what time of year it is, and have everything that we sell that you should be planting at that time of year coming up. So we got lots of exciting stuff coming on. If you join us on Facebook, please don't forget to like our page so that we can keep you up to date with what's going on. And if you join us on YouTube, you know the drill. All right, thanks a lot, everybody. Have a good night.